Good everyone, my name is Graphics. Today we'll be looking at this concept: forces, resultant force, resolution of forces, and moment. Now, let's start with forces. Now we have the word force, right? We said a force is anything that tends to change or change the position of a body at rest or uniform motion. Are we together now? So whatever change an object, probably I'm having my pen here and something tries to change the position of my biro at rest, you say such is called a force. Or you are moving on a straight line and something tends to move you away from your direction and change your direction, you say that is said to be what? A force. And it is measured in what? In Newton. Your force can be either a pull or what? Or a push. Are we good? So now, let's take this for example. If I have, let's take this case 1 now. Case 1. If I have a ball and it is pulled towards the east, right? Now you say the force here is what? Is positive, because it is going towards the east. You say the force is what? Is positive. Now if I have that same ball and it is pulled backward by force, you say the force is what? Negative. If I have the same ball, another ball again, that is pulled downward, you say such a force is what? Is going downward, right? Say such a force is what? Negative. Mind you, we're not talking about gravity here. Are we good now? Because in terms of gravity, the downward acceleration is said to be what? Positive. Now this is force. Now similarly, if I have a ball also and I pull it upward and the force is being projected, is pulled up by force, right? Now you say that force is what? Is positive. So in a nutshell, I'm making you understand that upward force is said to be positive, downward force is said to be negative. Forces to the right is said to be what? Positive, and forces to the left is said to be what? Negative. Are we good? Now, that is one. We have two axes. We have vertical axis and we have horizontal axis. The vertical axis is called y-axis. The horizontal axis is called x-axis. So any force that is parallel to my x-axis, we call it f of x, right? That is, we call it f of x, which is what? Our force along x-axis, or we call it horizontal component. Horizontal component. Is that okay? Or either it is facing left or it's facing right, you call it f of x, or you call it h. And most time you put a subscript x here. Are we good? Just call it h in some departments. Now, and you need to understand, any force that is acting vertical and is parallel to what? The vertical axis, which is the y-axis, you call it what? F of y. They call it vertical component, right? Or you call it V, same as vertical component. Are we together now? Now there's something I still want you to understand here, is that in this case here, now if I have this case here, let's take this example. Let's take the example. If I have a ball and a force is acting towards the right, towards the east, let's say F1, let's call it 5 Newton. and the force, another force is pulling it towards the west. Let's call that force F2, which is equal to what? 3 Newton. Are we good? Now we are now told to look for the net force. So my net force here will be F1 plus what? F2. Now what is my F1? My F1 is going towards the right. Now we say force going towards the right is positive. So it will be what? 5. Plus my F2 is going towards the left and is negative. It will be minus what? 3. Now this will give us 5 minus 3, and that will give me what? 2 Newton. That is case 1. Similarly, it can be in this direction too. That if it's facing down, let's call this to be F2. Let's call it 5 Newton. And let's call this F1 to be what? Let's call it 2 Newton. Are we good? The ball is pulled up. As the ball is pulled up with 2 Newton, simultaneously it is pulled down with what? Another 5 Newton. So my net force here will be what? F1 plus what? F2. And my F1 is what? 2. My F1 is what? 2. Then my F2 is what? And my F2 is what? Minus 5, because it's coming down when it's negative. So this will give me 2 minus 5. I'll be having what? Minus 3 Newton. Are we good? Now there's something I want you to understand again. Another good concept. So let's make you understand something here. If I have my different angle, let me say I have this and this. I also have this and this. You need to understand that this axis here facing the right is called my cos what? Cos 0. Right? Cos 0 will give you positive 1. My vertical force will give me what? Sine what? Sine 90. Right? And also